not understanding how mortgages work is not a valid excuse for not buying a home or for putting that off.
Welcome to The Full Disclosure, the mortgage podcast where we talk about what's really going on behind the scenes. I'm your host, Nora, co-founder of Morty, the all-in-one platform for mortgage. Welcome to The Full Disclosure. I am really excited today to introduce my guest, Vaidehi Rathod. Vaidehi is a relatively new loan officer who has been following the industry for years and decided to jump in herself about a year ago when she got her mortgage license. She was only 19 when she got her license and still in college at Georgia Tech, where she is studying computer science. And I have to say that is quite an accomplishment because I could barely do my classes in college. So the ability to both get your license and continue in college is really impressive. Finance and real estate have always been passions of hers. And so she got into the mortgage industry in order to further her knowledge on both subjects. Welcome to the show, Vaidehi.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we're going to kick things off with some rapid fire questions. These are quick answers, and we'll go through them pretty fast. Okay. Number one, what's more stressful, finals week or closing week?
Oh, closing week probably.
What is your coding language of choice?
Python.
Nice. Morty's built on Python, FYI.
Nice.
Text or call clients?
Text.
Your favorite real estate reality show?
Selling Sunset. I love the selling series, Selling the OC. I've watched all of them, but Selling Sunset has a special place in my heart.
And last question, would you rather do a loan for a friend or for a friend's parents?
A friend.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's jump right into things. Vaidehi, what is your disclosure?
Yeah, so I would say my disclosure is not understanding how mortgages work is not a valid excuse for not buying a home or for putting that off.
I totally agree. Tell me more. Tell me about the situations that you've seen where somebody used that excuse for a reason why they couldn't have they couldn't go buy a home.
I don't think I've ever seen this situation, but it's more of hearing it. And even the clients I have worked with or have talked to about the loans, they tend to do a lot of research. And I think that's great. I think it's definitely important to educate yourself, but especially young people. Before I started studying for the SAFE exam, I didn't even know that a mortgage loan officer was a thing. I thought real estate agents just worked with banks. I barely understood how it worked. And I'm that kind of person that if I don't understand what's going on, I'm very scared to put my money somewhere. And I think a lot of people, especially younger home buyers and first-time home buyers, they're very particular and they're very worried about saving $100 here, $1,000 there. And so they'll look at a bunch of loan options and they'll just get overwhelmed because they don't fully understand all of the jargon and terminology used. And I like that Morty's quotes are very easy to read, but looking at quotes from other banks, sometimes I get confused. I'm like, okay, what exactly is this number here for? What are you charging me $5,000 for? And so I think having that stress and anxiety sometimes keeps people from going forward with the home buying process. And especially in today's market, you have to act fast sometimes or else you're going to lose it.
I totally agree. Mortgage is full of boogeymaning, where it's making people confused or scared so that they do or don't act in a certain way. Part of the initial vision around Morty is how do you educate consumers with a more transparent experience? And that goes from that includes everything from mortgage quotes all the way through what's going to happen after my credit pull. How long does it take to close? What's the process of the mortgage right now? I'm curious from your perspective as a loan officer and just as a person that knows folks that are interested in getting mortgages or potentially thinking about buying a home, how do you alleviate some of those concerns?
Yeah, so I think knowledge is the best way to alleviate those concerns, and just knowing that, okay, when you get your quote, then you decide you want to do it, then you lock the rate, and then you know, okay, this is what I'm getting no matter what happens for the most part. I'm not going to have to pay more in closing. I won't have to change this rate. What I have is what it's going to be at the end. And then just knowing that, okay, the next step is an appraisal. The next step is make sure the appraisal report is correct. And then the next step is getting the closing disclosure. And then after that, 3 days we could close. And I think just having that timeline and taking away all of the uncertainty really helps a lot. And maybe even, I don't know, shadowing someone else that's going through the process. So if you have a friend or someone else you know in your family that's currently taking out a mortgage, or they have, maybe just speaking to them and getting their experience so that you understand, okay, when things go wrong, maybe it's not that abnormal and things will be okay.
Um, do you see do you see your peers, like people that are actively in college or in graduate school, trying to make the decision on if they should continue to rent versus buy?
I think so. Just a few of them. The ones mainly that have full time jobs or just got into the full time work market, especially in Atlanta. I feel like it's very difficult to find good places to buy in Midtown where all the companies are and where I'm located. And most of the places are for rent. However, rent is awful here. I live in student housing, which is not campus housing, but it's like a student type apartment, and they charge you like 1,500 per room, not for the entire apartment, per room. And so I think it gets very stressful trying to figure out if it's worth it to keep renting, or if it's worth it to buy a place and then pay the $600 HOA every month. And then on top of that, learning and figuring out, oh, is my credit score high enough to actually purchase a home? Can I get a loan? Is that loan going to cost me more over time? I think it's a very stressful decision that a lot of students and people my age don't really want to think about.
Right, especially if you're like starting a new job, you want to be focused on that. Or if you're in the middle of finals, you don't have time to like think about all of these different permutations of how you can acquire a home. You're like, I'll just do the thing that is right in front of me, even though that might not be the most financially sound decision.
Yes.
I'm curious how you think about how most of your peers get information about real estate and mortgage today.
Yeah, I would say, and this is probably the way that we get most of our information nowadays, social media, especially Instagram and TikTok for sure. There are so many influencers out there that are mortgage loan officers or real estate agents, and they do a great job of really educating people on their platforms. Of course, as YouTube used to be, you have to be careful what information is correct and incorrect, but I definitely believe I will get information on something from social media before I look it up on CNN or somewhere.
Yeah. Um, if somebody who was in college is listening to this and wants to consider becoming a loan officer but doesn't know that much about mortgage and wants to sort of begin to learn, what would you recommend that they do?
Yeah, so I actually began my journey, I guess, by watching a lot of YouTube videos on mortgage loan officers, and especially the day in the life of a mortgage loan officers. I think those were my favorites just because the way I kind of got into the industry was I was always interested in doing real estate. However, in college, that just wasn't feasible because I don't have time to drive people out to houses and show them houses every day whenever they want. So I learned that mortgage loan are would be like a remote way kind of to do a similar thing, and I've always loved finance, so I could start working on finance in that way. But I was not sure what the job entailed. I had no idea what the licensing entailed, and so watching those YouTube videos and even watching like certain TikTok accounts, it really helped me understand, like, okay, I could do this, I would enjoy this.
Do you think people should be intimidated by the SAFE exam?
No, I really don't, because the exam, as I'm sure everyone always says, it does not teach you how to be a mortgage loan officer. It teaches you how to do things legally. And especially if you're in college, it's no different than studying for like a final exam and memorizing a bunch of facts. And you can take it again if you don't do well. So there's no reason not to.
Yeah, I feel like there are so many resources out there on how to get licensed and how to learn up and how to study for the SAFE exam. It can feel really overwhelming to people, but just recognizing that, like, study the materials, take the practice exams, listen to other people's experiences through TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and it's not that bad. And
Yeah, especially if you're in college. I mean, if you can take the exams you're taking in school, this is nothing. You can do this.
you're like, heard it here first. How does your interest in computer science and technology overall fit with your passion for mortgage and real estate?
I feel like it hasn't really overlapped yet specifically, other than the fact that, Morty itself is a fully online based platform. So obviously it's nice to have an understanding of how that works. And, if there are issues, I feel like I'm technically knowledgeable enough to figure out issues before trying to look it up. But I think in the future, for sure, especially with the rise of AI, it'll be a lot more useful, especially if you are intimidated of becoming a loan officer, or if you're trying to buy a home and you're not really sure which resources are true and which ones are false. I think using technology, especially AI, ChatGPT, it's a great way to understand everything that goes on in the process.
I'd love to hear more about that. So, like, what type of AI applications do you think can be helpful both for you in your job today, but also for somebody maybe who's trying to join the mortgage industry like you did, kind of as a side business, or as kind of like a gig economy pursuit?
Yeah, so I think all of the chatbots, I've personally used Copilot, Claude like once or twice, and then ChatGPT has everything. I will say, as a computer science student, just a quick disclaimer, AI does use a lot of like energy and resources, or like natural resources. So be careful and don't overuse or abuse AI. But I think it is still a great tool to have when you're confused. Like you have a client asking you a question about, oh, can I do this random HELOC or ARM? And you have absolutely no idea how to address that because you've never done that before. And the exam obviously didn't teach you how to do that. So it's a great way to quickly type in the prompt, get a brief note of what you could answer the client, and just give them a starting point basically before you do more research.
Yeah, and just like a quick plug for Morty, we actually just released in beta an AI tool that does that, overlaid with Morty's lenders and pricing information, so that you can get information about eligibility and requirements, but specifically for Morty's platform.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll
Yeah,
definitely need to check that out. I think that'll
yeah.
be very useful because it definitely takes a lot of time to do that manually. And if you can do it automatically, why wouldn't you?
Our thoughts exactly. um, Cool. Well, I'm also curious, like, as you think about yourself in kind of like the mortgage and real estate industry, do you think you'll stick in it post college, or do you think you'll stay in it post college?
I would like to, whether I'm doing loans or real estate, or if I'm the one investing in real estate, I really would like to because I think it's very important to understand how it works and to keep updated on the trends going on because most people would like to buy a house or at least buy a condo or rent, or, everyone needs a place to live. And so I don't think it's something that would ever exit my life just because I am interested in it. However, I don't know if I'll keep doing it to the scale and to the extent I am, especially if I got a full time job somewhere that took a lot of my time.
Totally makes sense. I think one of the things that's cool with a platform like Morty is that you can keep it on the side and it's not so burdensome. And then when you just organically through your network get somebody, that's like you get to sort of like itch that scratch that itch, and and also, make a couple $1,000s in a month, which is really meaningful.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what I've been doing personally. I have not really been networking or trying to find clients, especially since my network, no one's really looking to buy a home right now. But the few people that I've gotten, like friends of my parents or just other leads through Morty, once a couple of months, it's a great way to engage in that without all of the pressure of, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this.
Yeah, for sure. So, as a computer science student, and hopefully you know about me, I'm an engineer as well, right? I have a graduate degree in computer science,
Mhm.
although I I went to Emory in Atlanta, so
Oh,
I went
nice.
to I went to college just pretty close to where you were. But I studied biology when I was an undergrad, and then I sort of made the transition into computer science when I was a little bit older. Um, but I'm curious about your interest in the startup world. It seems like that's kind of a budding fascination for you as well.
Yeah, so I've always been interested in business, and I think the only reason I didn't study it in college yet, at least I would like to do my MBA at some point, but I truly believe that business is something that you can learn very well by doing and not necessarily by taking classes. And I really wanted to learn computer science and do some engineering as well, so that's why I chose that path.
I'll also just plug that I think, so I obviously agree. I also think that having an engineering mindset, which is like very logical and quantitative, um, dovetails extremely well into business. And if you have sort of like the interpersonal skills on top of that, like sort of EQ and leadership skills, it can be a real home run.
That's good to know because I feel like I've assumed that, but it's nice to have someone say, yes, that is the case.
Well, I mean, I'm very biased because it's my background and my co-founder's background, and there are other tech companies that have been very successful that also have those backgrounds. But I'll acknowledge the biasness. So I'd love to sort of like switch the tables for a minute and let you interview me on anything and everything startup and business related.
Yeah, so I guess just to set the stage a little bit, I'm currently in a capstone project. It's called Create X, and so we basically figure out a problem we want to solve, and then we create a product, and then we take that product to market. And as far as the class goes, it's only for one semester, but they do offer us the chance to go into like startup launch over the summer if our product does well and it's something we want to pursue. However, if if I did that, then I wouldn't be able to do an internship or any of the other things. And so I guess my question is, when it comes to entrepreneurship, how do you know when to take a risk instead of doing the thing that's like for sure and set in stone, especially when it comes to like making money or maybe not making money if you took the risk?
Yeah, I mean, that gets to the core of what it is to be a founder and an entrepreneur. Like for me, I I always bet on myself, my co-founder, technology, and vision um, over the over what is known. Um, but that's the stuff that I love, and like you know, for you especially, like you're young, life is long. You will have plenty of time to go traditional routes. Um, at the end of the day, my only advice is like do the thing that like turns all the lights on in your head. For me, um, doing this, like being a founder and running my own company and having to do like a million things at the same time turned on all my lights. Doing one thing, doing the same thing every single day, that was actually much more challenging for me because of like just how my brain chemistry works. And so at this point, I would just encourage you to do less, to think less about like the risk for the rest of your life and more about what you think will be fulfilling and meaningful for you and your development as a person. Because like life's long, you'll have lots of chances to have more traditional jobs.
That's nice to hear. I feel like my fear always comes from like, oh, it was so hard to get this thing. am I really going to let it go to do something I want to do? I have no idea how it's going to work out. But like you said,
You have to
I have
believe in
a
it.
lot of
Like,
time to fail.
look, you have to believe in it. But this is what, like, your most valuable and limited resource in life is time. And so spend the time the way you want to spend your time.
Very, very insightful. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's very hard to execute, but
Very
it's
hard.
definitely true.
Very hard.
Especially when you doom scroll on LinkedIn and you see all these other
Oh, don't
people
do
you
that.
know,
Don't
and
do
it's
that.
like,
Don't do that.
no.
Try not to look like I like social media is like, I think you can get education and learn things and there's like some cool things there, but the
Oh
doom
yeah, you have to be
scrolling,
very careful
yeah,
about how it affects you.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I was curious, how did you get the idea for Morty, or how did that start? Is that something that, one day you were just thinking, oh, I want to start a company like Morty, or did it start as something else and then eventually blossom into what it is today?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, Morty was not just my idea. Um, it was a combination of all of my co-founders. And so we come from kind of a broad background of mortgage experience, finance experience, startup experience, regulatory experience. Um, and the thought process was really around, let's create a marketplace to democratize access to home financing solutions. We had one of my co-founders was working in equities trading and like was like, why is there not the level of transparency in mortgage pricing as there is when I'm trading equities? I came from a background um, of startups, but before that nonprofit, and I was like, why is there not transparency? So we're empowering consumers to understand what exactly they're doing. And so it was really a combination of everybody's like thoughts and experiences that made us decide to establish Morty. Now, Morty's been around for about 7 years. We started as a direct to consumer business that was really focused on providing consumers with the most efficient, transparent mortgage experience out there. About a year ago, when we pivoted our business to be a platform, we sort of made that determination because we said, look, the best way for us to get this technology that we think is really valuable to consumers is to let the people that are great at working with consumers use it. And so that's my other way of saying, like, kind of gets back to your first question around what you should do. Everything is an evolution. So I think if you have a core belief, you follow that. And then you also watch and listen to the market and kind of evolve to make sure that you are creating something that the market wants and needs,
Mhm.
and that you're distributing it in a sustainable way that allows it to grow.
Okay, that's very interesting because I feel like whenever I think of companies, I just think, how did they get there? Like, where do you
It's
start?
never a straight line. It's never, ever a straight line. I mean, somebody told me a story the other day how NVIDIA almost ran out of money and they had like 50 grand in their bank account and then they got a loan from one of their early customers. This is like many, many years ago.
Mhm.
We should verify that before we
Yeah.
put it on the podcast, um, but like it's never a straight line. Only people sometimes like gloss over the really bad parts, but like
Mhm.
that's the other thing. I mean, I believe this is Elon Musk, and we can talk about what we think about him separately. But like, one thing that he has said that I 100% agree with is like the most important feature or the most important attribute quality that a founder has is like high pain tolerance. Because like there's ups and downs. It's not a straight line.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. I think, and like you said, just having that idea or the passion, like if it's something you really, really enjoy, I feel like, at least for me personally, I can stay up all night doing it. I can stay extra hours. Like I can work 24/7. Even if I'm tired, it doesn't feel like work. So I guess
For sure.
finding that is the hard part.
Yeah, I'm with you. Awesome. Well, Vaidehi, this was so fun. I really enjoyed chatting with you. I wanted to give you the opportunity to promote yourself.
Yeah, thank you. So, like mentioned before, my name is Vaidehi. I'm licensed in Georgia and Tennessee. So if you are doing business there, especially if you don't really understand how the process works. That's kind of where I come in. I love educating people and really helping people understand how the mortgage industry works and helping you find the best option for you.
Awesome. Well, this was so great. I really enjoyed having you on and being able to chat about everything from mortgage, real estate to startups and risk tolerance. Thank you again. That's a wrap for today. Thanks for joining us. And remember to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another episode. And remember, you can't close if you don't disclose.